What's an encounter with a celebrity you've had where they were an absolute dick? I was sitting in the lounge in one of the big music studios in Hollywood. And Bruno Mars walk up. Looks at me. And says, "Where the duck is my cab?" I looked at him and said, "Who the duck are you?" I really had no idea who he was, haha. But dude did act like an absolute dick. Nicest guy ever, Billy Ray Cyrus. The studio had a policy that you're never supposed to touch the food any of the artists order or bring in, and you're especially not supposed to take any home. As I was leaving, he slipped me 2 huge meat and cheese trays out the door when no one was looking. As an intern trying to make it as an audio engineer, that sustained me for almost 2 weeks. Oprah didn't tip me on a $200 lunch. Instead, she signed a napkin for me and acted like she was doing me a huge favor. The kicker was when she walked in. They gave away all of my other tables so she didn't have to wait for anything. So I made $4 an hour for 2 hours for the privilege of serving Oprah, and she goes on and on about signing a napkin for me. That I never asked for. Used to work at a Hard Rock hotel. Mariah Carey was the absolute definition of a ducking diva. She used a bunch of employee passageways, and we were instructed that if we looked her in the eyes we would get written up. We were also told that we had to immediately vacate any room that she entered. Even if we were in the cafeteria on break or in the bathroom doing our business. She's an asshole on top of that too. A few of her backup dancers accused her of sexual assault during Me Too, and nothing ever came of it. Mid-90s. Worked at a golf course that was so exclusive not even Michael Jordan could be a member. The day was very rainy and the course was closed to everyone except the foursome Jordan was in. He ran late. The other 3 started without him. He arrived. They loaded his clubs on the cart. I was standing probably 50 feet away as he was getting ready to leave and meet his group. No one else around. There was nothing for me to do since no one else was on the course or the driving range. I'm not gawking or anything. Just kinda marveling at how tall he is. They don't look so tall on TV. He calls me over. "How can I help you, MR? Jordan? Can I have that towel?" "Of course, sir. Thanks. I knew you were good for something." Nice. For those asking. EGC and Skokie. IL. I wasn't implying he wanted to be a member. Just that he wouldn't be allowed because they were racist. My uncle works at a Vegas casino. None of the Kardashians or Jenners tip anyone. Ever. He was with them for over 3 hours and didn't receive a dime and was treated like total garbage. Scott Disick. However, is a great tipper and great guy all around. Ran into Pierce Brosnan while on vacation in Hawaii before Daniel Craig took the role of James Bond. He was in a gift shop and we bumped into each other. Out of surprise, I pulled out my finger gun and shot him in classic Bond fashion. Right in the gut. He staggered back and held his stomach. Slowly dying in this gift store in front of me. As a 12-year-old, it was the coolest thing ever. I worked my way through college as a waiter in a gourmet room in Las Vegas. I became acquainted with Florence Henderson, RIP. And she would ask to sit in my station. One evening she had a guest. Joan Rivers. Me. Henderson had a favorite wine. Peace Porter. That she always ordered. It just so happened that on our wine list, that wine was labeled as number 69. That's how she ordered it. "I'll have a bottle of 69. On this night. I approached the table. Introduced myself to Mrs. Rivers and made the usual small talk. Then I asked. "So Mrs. Henderson, would you like a little 69 tonight?" OMG. Joan Rivers went completely insane. She started screaming and yelling and demanding security to have me fired and arrested. And the whole time, Florence Henderson is trying to calm her down and explain. Long story short, the maitre d' put me in another area, and not long after I graduated and left that job, and I never forgot that story. This happened in 1985. Holy it. I never thought I'd get the chance to tell this story. I can't tell people in real life because they will never believe me. And I guess you guys will probably call me a liar too. But whatever. I went on a date with Taylor Swift before she got super famous. It was right out of high school. When she was making a name for herself. But not yet a gigantic deal. I knew her because we lived near each other. It was the craziest thing. Really. I only asked her out on a dare because even not famous. She was way out of my league. But it turns out she was really nice and enjoyed the opportunity to go hang out for a while. She always had a reputation as a girl who burns the candle at both ends. And she's always stressed. So I think she just wanted to relax. It was a pretty basic just out of high school date. We went to see a movie and I got to feel like a jackass rolling up to her super nice house in my post-Datsun honeybee. Don't let her early work fool you. She's a rich kid. Anyway. Onto the crap you guys are actually wanting to hear about. So. After the movie and some dinner. We go back to my place to listen to some music. After a while. She pretends to be interested in checking out the hiking trails out behind my house. She said she really enjoys being out in the woods. But I figured she just wanted to be away from my parents. So we get out into the woods and very quickly get into some heavy making out. Clothes go everywhere. And that's when this story starts to take its turn. Gentlemen. I have some things to tell you about Taylor Swift. First thing, turns out she loves giving head. Pretty much the most enthusiastic beach of my life happened on that trail. She couldn't get enough. However, she's terrible at it. She's got heart. But I hope for all future guys' sakes that she took some lessons. She's all teeth. And she's got that thing where her tongue is just ridiculously rough. After a while of that, we get down to the main event. Another thing you should know about her is that she is somewhat hairier than one might expect from a super hot rich girl. I never got to ask her what was up with that. Actually. So anyway. We're getting our awkward teenage bone on. And she's just as crazy as she was before. Except this time she's just straight up clawing my back to shreds. I'm not going to pretend I didn't make it where I needed to go. But goddamn, I was expecting some kind of revelation from her. It was one of those things where it is so disappointing because you had expected so much from it. So. After it was all said and done. We're putting our clothes back on. When I notice that I'm actually bleeding from my back. I had known she had her heart in it. But I didn't expect for her to draw blood. But then I noticed her nails were longer and sharper than I had noticed before. And that's when I started to put it all together. She clawed my back. Her BJ was all teeth. She likes being in the woods. She went on a date with a guy driving a Datsun honeybee. Guys. Taylor Swift is a method king bear. I must have shown on my face when I put it all together. Because she got a glint in her beady black eyes and roared. I didn't even bother putting my clothes back on. I just ran for dear life. Luckily. I knew the woods behind my house better than she did. Even more luckily. I was able to squeeze through some spots that her 1,000-pound frame just couldn't get. Winter was coming soon. I knew if she caught me I'd be killed and stuffed into the cave she cleverly disguised as an expansive suburban home so that she could keep her energy up before hibernation began. I eventually wound up hiding in a stump by a stream until she gave up and left. It was the most frightened I've ever been in my life. TLDR, don't date burgeoning stillits. You never know who they really are. I went to a pool party in LA around 2002 and there was a guy named Michael Bubble there. I don't think anyone had heard of him at the time. I remember meeting him only because my friend made fun of him when he introduced himself by calling him Michael Googly Moogly, which was a reference to line in a Snickers commercial. For the rest of the night he was known as Googly Moogly. Later that night, I walked into the bathroom in the guest house and he was taking a shit. I think it was about a year or two later that he became a big deal. I was next to the table of Leo DiCaprio at Catch in NY. Saw him get with an 18-year-old IMG model, then proceeded to take her home. Saw them leave together like it was nothing. The girl had the biggest smile on her face too. When I was around 13, my cousin surprised me and took me to Leonardo DiCaprio's house. My cousin's newlywed husband was very good friends with him. This was around 15 years ago too. When Leo was in his absolute prime. And unbeknownst to him I was completely and utterly obsessed. I'll never forget sitting on his white leather couch just waiting for him to walk into the room we were all in, and out he came with a trail of smoke behind him. High as a kite with a fat joint in between his fingers. And I mean he was high AF. I didn't even recognize him due to his scruffy beard and long matted hair. Not really NSFW, but pretty funny that I was expecting him to look like Jack from the Titanic, but he could have passed as a dude. In early 2013, a female friend and I went to an after party that Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, was DJing at after one of his concerts in Sydney. After his DJ set, we were smoking outside when Donald exits the venue through a side door. We looked over at him and he immediately approaches us and introduces himself. Right from the get-go, my friend starts flirting with him hard. He asks us if we had any weed. We did. And he invited us back to his hotel to smoke with him. We ended up on the balcony of his hotel suite along with a couple of other guys smoking a blunt. My friend is all over him. I've never seen her try so hard to get with a guy. I could tell from pretty early on that he wasn't into it at all. He was staring off into the distance and ignoring her or responding with one-word answers. After about half an hour, he stands up and says, "I'm going to bed." My friend asks him if she should come. To which he looks her dead in the eye and says, "I honestly don't give a duck what you do," and walks off. We left soon after that. About a year later, I read an interview with him where he said that he tried to kill himself on that Australian tour. In hindsight, the way he was acting definitely seemed like someone who was depressed. I was in a very massive men's room at a venue taking a piss. I was about 15 urinals deep and bathroom was completely empty, as far as I could tell, besides me. In walks Jack Black. He walks right up to the urinal next to me. Nothing weird happened. But I always found it bizarre that he didn't space himself out better. That's a man code violation. My sister ran into Matthew McConaughey in a bar years ago. They hit it off. And they went back to her place. She got overwhelmed by nerves and said she had to go run out to her car to get something. She sat in her car freaking out for God knows how long until he eventually gave up and left. Must have baffled the poor guy. Friend was pissing next to Shaq at a club in Miami. Of course he can't keep his eyes on the road. And tried to sneak a peek at Shaq's junk. Shaq turns to him, smiles and says, "Crazy right? Big near. Regular dick."